Hey, it's Matt O'Leary, and we are just days away from 2018, so I guess it's time to go through all the music from 2017, the heaping pile of albums, and try to come up with some sort of list of highlights. This year seemed especially difficult as compared to past years because there didn't seem to be as many clear front runners. There were a lot of good albums, but the process of actually ranking them was more ridiculous and arbitrary than ever. In this video, like last year, I'll do numbers 30 through 16, and then in another video I'll do 15 through 1. For me personally, 2017 was a year of celebration with a friend who got married, with some friends and family that are either expecting a child or had a child during the year, or just have a child that's growing up. I also started a new job counseling. I started coaching some sports. I listened to a lot of Jordan Peterson lectures, and I read some really solid books. My cat turned 8. And music, of course, surrounded all those great experiences. So let's start it off with the prolific Canadian singer-songwriter. At number 30, it's Daniel Romano with Modern Pressure. And yes, this is very Bob Dylan-esque. Let's just get that comparison out of the way. He's really got the whole 60s on lock. He even mixes in some sitar and some backwards tape effects like from the Beatles' Revolver. Some of the wistful lyricism on these verses is really memorable, like in the song Roya. The verse goes, "How I searched the holy vessel for your chamber, how I opened up to any given stranger just to find you standing in some astral plane where there are no shadows." That is... It's pop Americana at its best, like that winding guitar solo in Impossible Green, or that slow, almost circus-like syncopation on the chorus of I Tried to Hold the World in My Mouth. If you want some classic, all-American, flower power rock and roll that sounds a little bit like Justin Townes Earl and a little bit like Dr. Dog, check this out. Berlin-based producer Leroy delivered number 29 on my list this year. It's Bambadea. These are some of my favorite just pure beats of the year, like on the song Quirly Stew or Exposure. They're just these big hip-hop beats that deserve to be just repeated into oblivion. But I also love the more mild, the more serene, the more introspective beats, like on Happen from the Void or Advantage of Nothing. There are some really unusual sounds here, but it's not done in a flashy or a showy way at all. There's a refreshing amount of restraint and tact. At number 28 is some math rock, and in my opinion, this is the band that's sort of the gateway into this world. It's the boys from Chon with their sophomore effort, Homey. Chon just totally own this sound. Like, it is theirs, this noodly, guitar-driven, easy-listening instrumental rock. They've managed to make technical mastery cool to young people. Like, that's a huge feat. If you think of bands like Dream Theater or just jazz music in general, it's not usually what the kids are into. A lot of fans were annoyed by all the poppy features on this album. There's no doubt this sound moves them a little bit closer toward, I guess, the zeitgeist. But I don't think it sacrifices their musicality at all. Even if you've never listened to progressive metal or math rock at all in your life, I feel like you could get into this band. Really good stuff. Daniel and Lauren Gones are the folk duet Lowland Hum, who come in at number 27 with their album Thin. I totally fell in love with their traditional sound and elegant simplicity about 2 years ago, and they've been a house music staple ever since. The opener from this album, Thin, is called Palm Lines, and it speaks to the unquestionable psychological benefits of taking the world just one step at a time. Small accruing gains at the level of the individual are actually the most essential ingredient in wide-scale positive change. That song, Palm Lines, is actually a microcosm for the whole album, which just continually brings you back to that home base of humility with its very modest approach. There's a big emphasis on observation and listening as the means of growth and meaning. I haven't even mentioned the music yet. This is some gentle acoustic folk that really rests on the backbone of this stunning contrast between the male and the female voice. My highlights are the melodically rich Adonai and Compass. The most pure electronic album on the list is at number 26. It's Photay with Onism. I'm really into rock and jazz music. Some of these just bassline sounds and timbres are just completely foreign to me. There are obviously some field recordings mixed in, but also your fair share of synthetic pops and slimy gurgles. My favorite song title of the year gotta go to Inharmonious Slog. This is a straight up dance banger, and it's not oversaturated by all these wonky noises. I love the dissonance in the everyday push, or that almost Balearic beat in Off-Piste. And so many of these songs open up from just this tight electronic bustling to this ambient openness. It's like walking out of a factory and into the glorious light of day, just staring out across the Pacific Northwest timber and smelling some sweet, sweet smells. It's a coexistence of the synthetic and the organic, the artificial and the natural. Number 25 is a follow-up to most people's favorite jazz album of 2016. This time it's not a 3-hour endeavor, but instead it's this very digestible, very short and sweet little EP called Harmony of Difference by Kamasi, Washington. I went to Pitchfork Fest last year, so summer of 2016. Not only was this my favorite performance there, but it made the whole trip worth it. Like, I felt like I could hear every instrument so clearly and distinctly. This is very much the same as his album The Epic. You got your powerhouse gang harmonies, some bossa nova, your Coltrane level screeching sax solos, and of course you got those cinematic brass motifs that carry on throughout the album. This is a great follow-up. Number 24 is another follow-up to one of my favorite albums of last year. Actually, my favorite album of 2016. It's Kiran Leonard's Derevaun Seraun. Go back and watch my review to hear some more thoughts, but this one's based and really inspired by some of Kiran's favorite literary works, or books, as most people know them, by Henry Miller, by James Joyce, by Albert Camus. It's not nearly as volatile as his album Grapefruit, but it's got that same level of intense passion and vulnerability that makes his music so special. If you like Snarky Puppy, then number 23 is for you. It's Kneebody, or Anybody, Knee Body with Anti-Hero. This is some heavy jazz funk and jazz fusion, but it's not like Return to Forever or Weather Report. It's got these big, heavy funk and hip-hop inspired drums, and there's much more of an emphasis on groove over complexity. It's imaginative and propulsive jazz with the keys and the horns constantly dancing around each other. There's definitely a playfulness to it, but it's also very heavy and very pounding and very, very much like Snarky Puppy's stuff. So if you like their stuff as much as I do, then you gotta go for it. Nashville instrumental band Steelism comes in at number 22 with their debut full length. It's called Ism. And the steel guitar really takes center stage here, giving it this very strong country twang. But there's also some jazz and some blues and some R&B. They're one of those bands that could take requests at a bar and just play all these classic songs without a second thought. They just seem like that kind of group. They go back to a band like The Shadows from the 60s and whip out these surf rock guitars on the song Anthem, while the song Cup of Wasser plods along with some dancing arpeggios and this buoyant psych rock bass line. There's nothing super epic about these songs or anything. It's just some solid jams from a solid and versatile group of musicians. I think I gave this next album like a modest 7 out of 10 in my review initially. But like most albums from this band, it just keeps growing on me. At number 21, it's one of my favorite bands and one of the most creative stadium rock bands out there. It's Mew with Visuals. First off, Visuals is clearly poppier than some of their more experimental work from early in their career, like Frengers or And the Glass-Handed Kites, but still with so much variety, like the title fight pump up intro of Candy Pieces, or that stuttering saxophone lead on Twist Quest, and just these massive hooks on every single song. If you don't love this band yet, I can assure you it's probably because you haven't given them enough time. Next up is some English folk. It's an album completely recorded to tape, arduously. Number 20 is Waiting Around by John Stammers. There's just this warm analog intimacy to this whole thing. It's a very soothing listen from front to back between delicate finger picking and breezy harmonies and John's subdued vocal cadence. There are some magical chord progressions here, like these sparkling, spine-tingling moments. Risky Flowers descends from this pastoral peak down to this low, menacing march, while the closer Your Time is a definite highlight. It's probably the most lo-fi the album gets, and kind of a cross between Carrie and Lowell and like Tallest Man on Earth. Overall, this is just expert songwriting on every single track. It's all killer, no filler, a straight-up sophisticated and depressingly under-recognized and overlooked album. I'm noticing there's a lot of folk music and lots of Americana music on this list so far, so apparently a really good year for that sound. This next artist just blasted straight to stardom early on in their career. He seemed to have everything going for him: style, talent, pop sensibility, crazy, insane technique, and this incredible voice. Then his personal life happened, and now it's super uncool to like him. But you cannot deny John Mayer's The Search for Everything. This, in my mind, is songwriting that nears the quality of his best album, Continuum. Emoji of a Wave is John's best song in years, with its momentous chorus filled with celestial harmonies and chill-inducing vocal runs. I love the timpanis and the string arrangement that just build momentum on top of this fingerpick guitar and this shimmering Fender Rhodes synth sound. John also gets back to that funk sound of a song like Vultures from Continuum, with tracks like Still Feel Like Your Man and Moving On and Getting Over. And that proggy solo on Rosie, a little bit of Steven Wilson coming out. Then there's the Pixar-esque beauty of the instrumental theme, or You're Gonna Live Forever in Me. How could you not have a massive ego if you were this guy? Like John Mayer. Don't sleep on it. At number 18, it's a newcomer, Moses Sumney, with Aromanticism. I still think this album's a little one-dimensional lyrically. It just asks the question over and over again: what are we without romantic love? Less interesting. But this guy has such a unique approach to R&B, playing this minimalistic, clean jazz guitar to leave room for his divine falsetto. The song Quarrel's a deceptively simple arrangement, but little intricacies just reveal themselves with repeated listens. The brass and harp and punchy hip-hop drums give it such a majestic feel. Then there's that jazzy jam section at the end. Is that Thundercat on bass? I desperately want to make an a cappella arrangement of that song. That one and Don't Bother Calling and Doomed and the closer Self-Help tape with all those harmonic layers. Ooh, those are favorites for me. At number 17, it's the deep and mystical pool of sounds on the album Chalice Hymnal by the Portland experimental rock band Grails. Dark, introspective tracks like Tough Guy or The Moth and the Flame fill in the gaps between more drum-heavy, more psych rock guitar-heavy tracks like New Prague. I love the acoustic progginess of tracks like Deep Snow 2 or Thorns 2. It's very Opethy, but more amorphous and more ambient. The big highlight, though, has to be the frenetic single Pelham, which just has this heart-pounding, this percolating rhythm that just never lets up. Oh, it's so cool. At number 16, it's a band typically characterized as indie rock wallpaper. You can hang them on a shelf, you can disregard them if you want, but this one really got to me this year. It's Real Estate's In Mind. The first time I heard Darling, I was like, yep, that's one of my songs of the year. Just a perfect riff with these tricky time shifts. What could be better? I love the urgent instrumental on Stained Glass, or those heavenly vocal harmonies, or the bass grooves that drive the song's two arrows or holding pattern. You know, Real Estate, they do lazy psychedelia. Like, that's their lane, and they're sticking to it. Give me that sweet ride cymbal. All right, okay, that's it. That's numbers 30 through 16. So next time we'll continue with the top 15 albums of 2017. Oh, I'm so excited for that. As always, thank you so much for watching.